All right, let's talk about an incredible animal. And the two just completely different worlds it lives in. See, on one hand, it's this absolute masterpiece of natural engineering. But on the other, it's the target of a massive criminal enterprise. Today, we're going to unpack the two stories of the pangolin.
So first, let's just meet the creature at the heart of all this. This is the pangolin, and it's the only mammal on the entire planet covered in this unique armor of overlapping scales. It's an evolutionary marvel that's protected it for millions and millions of years.
And right there, that's the crazy paradox we're digging into. Its greatest defense has somehow become its biggest weakness. The very scales that are meant to shield it from predators are exactly what make it a top target for poachers, pushing it right to the brink.
So let's jump into that first story, a really grim tale of crime on an industrial scale, a problem that hit its peak just a few years back. And I want to be clear, this is not small-time stuff. We are talking about transnational organized crime.
Now, you'd think that getting the highest level of international protection, which happened in 2016, would have, helped. But instead, the trafficking crisis just exploded. It accelerated dramatically, hitting this insane peak in 2019, right before a global event came along and changed absolutely everything.
And the sheer volume here is just staggering. In 2019, authorities seized 2 record-breaking shipments of pangolin scales, and they were just days apart. Together, they added up to more than 25 metric tons. It's honestly hard to even wrap your head around a number that big.
But let's try to put that in perspective. Think about this. During that same time frame, 3 of the largest ivory seizures ever also added up to more than 25 metric tons. So the pangolin trade was operating on the exact same industrial level as the ivory trade. Just massive.
And here's the really crucial point. You don't move that kind of volume by accident. It takes huge amounts of money, incredibly complex logistics, and, let's be honest, corrupt connections at a lot of ports. These are the undeniable fingerprints of huge transnational criminal networks. And when you look at the investigation data from the Wildlife Justice Commission, a very clear picture emerges. It was like a trafficking superhighway. Before 2020, these huge consolidated shipments were mostly moving by sea cargo, starting in Nigeria and heading straight for Vietnam.
Okay, so now let's completely pivot. Let's leave the world of crime for a minute and jump into the world of science and engineering. Because when you understand what makes these scales so special, it just makes the whole criminal side of things even more tragic.
This is what's so amazing. This incredible armor that's strong enough to fend off bites from lions and tigers, is made of keratin. Yeah, that's the exact same protein that makes up your hair and your fingernails. It's just wild.
So on the outside, the scales form this flexible, almost impenetrable shield. Each scale fits perfectly with its neighbors, kind of like chainmail. And when the pangolin gets scared, it curls up into this tight, sharp-edged ball that gives predators absolutely no weak spots to attack.
But the real secret, the real magic to their strength, is actually what's happening underneath the surface. If you sliced a scale open and looked at a cross-section, you'd find this complex, multi-layered design, and each of those layers has a very specific job to do.
And if we could zoom in even further, like way down to the microscopic level, we'd see this incredible architecture. The keratin fibers are arranged in this crisscrossing pattern. It's almost like a naturally occurring woven composite, kind of like nature's version of carbon fiber. And this structure is the key to stopping cracks dead in their tracks. So in engineering terms, this design gives the scales an extremely high fracture toughness. Basically, what that means is if a predator's tooth does manage to start a tiny crack, the scale's internal structure brilliantly guides that damage and that energy away from the pangolin's soft body. It's genius.
And just like our own fingernails, hydration is everything. If the keratin gets too dry, it can be brittle. But when it's properly hydrated, thanks to the humidity in the pangolin's environment, it becomes incredibly tough and flexible.
So you've got this highly sophisticated criminal machine on one side and a world-changing event on the other. How did they collide? Well, that trafficking superhighway we were just talking about, it was about to hit a massive, massive roadblock. This one sentence from a recent Wildlife Justice Commission report, it just says it all. The industrial scale trade that was so rampant before 2020 didn't just slow down, it collapsed, it slammed on the brakes, and that disruption has actually been sustained. So what happened? How did this happen? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was basically a perfect storm.
You had the COVID-19 pandemic shutting down global shipping. You had really smart, targeted law enforcement operations in key countries. And all that sowed so much fear and mistrust inside the criminal networks that they started to fall apart from within.
And the result of all this is, well, it's nothing short of stunning. According to the data, for 3 years, there hasn't been a single significant seizure of pangolin scales at any seaport in the world. Those massive, multi-ton shipments have, for all intents and purposes, stopped.
So this brings us right back to our two stories and to this ultimate question of value. Because with this pause in trafficking, we have this critical window, this moment, to decide which story we're going to prioritize. What is it that we really need to protect?
The Wildlife Justice Commission report actually gives us a clear roadmap to make this disruption permanent. And it's not about going after the poachers on the ground. No, it's about targeting the big bosses, the financiers, the kingpins, using really sophisticated financial investigations and international cooperation.
And this right here gets to the scale's true worth. It's not as some bogus ingredient in traditional medicine. Its real value is as a blueprint. Scientists today are literally studying its unique structure to design the next generation of lightweight, flexible, and impact-resistant body armor for people.
And so, we're left with a choice, aren't we? Between two completely different ways of seeing this animal and its incredible armor. Is it just a commodity to be weighed on a scale and sold on the black market? Or is it a natural library filled with millions of years of engineering secrets?
And that's really the crucial point I hope you take away. We have to decide which story of the pangolin scale we're going to choose to write for the future. Is it going to be the one about criminal exploitation or the one about scientific inspiration? That choice is up to us.